Hey, welcome into the Snap episode. What are we at, Landon? 221. We got some waivers. Week 13 coming at you. A lot of news to get to. Some players that you might be adding this week. You have no idea who they are. You've never heard of them before, but that's okay. That's why you're here. That's why you're hanging with the Snap Boys. Mack and Landon here, ready to get you dialed for what most of you is probably your second last week of the regular fantasy season before we jump into the playoffs. You ready, Lando? You ready for the playoffs? You in a good spot?
Yeah, I'm excited. This is going to be a fun show. Nice to get on with Mac. Nice to talk to everyone. If you do have some waiver questions, that's what we're here for tonight. If you're watching this after the fact, we'll get you in the comments. If you have start-sit questions for week 13, this is a big week. This is a must-win week for a lot of people because, yeah, it's do or die. This is your chance to get in. If you're sitting back and you've got a playoff spot locked up, congrats. But I think most of us are battling it out here right now.
Yeah, absolutely grinding. If you guys are joining us on YouTube, feel free to get those comments in the comments section. We're going to go over our favorite ads of the week, players we think should be in your lineup for this week and moving forward. And then when we're done the waiver segment, we'll jump straight into your questions.
Love it. Love it.
Let's do it. There's some deliberation here between Landon and I as to who the number one ad is. And I guess we'll just talk about players and what our number one ad might not be what you need. So if, our number one ad this week is a wide receiver, but you desperately need a running back, then you have to prioritize those positions, of course. But we will tell you if we would burn first priority on this player, and we will also try to tell you how much fab you should spend of your remaining budget to get these players onto your team.
For strategy right now, Mac, are you thinking about blocking your opponents? So if your opponent has Michael Carter and you have more fab than them, are you trying to add Zonovan Knight to block them?
If I have the bench space, so for example, in one league this week, I have Darnell Mooney. He's now on IR for the rest of the season. I can throw him in my IR spot, and then that opens up a spot. So in that case, I'm going to try to get Zonovan Knight. Sorry, I should just say Bam Knight on my team and play block against somebody else. With that being said, in other leagues like our Gridiron Tradition League, it doesn't make sense for me to drop the players that I have on my bench to pick up a guy like Zonovan Knight, right? So it's really kind of a luxury pick if you can make it. But playing defense against your opponent is not, the most sought after move. But if you can do it, you do it. Like picking up both quarterbacks on Sunday evening.
Right, exactly. That's
you want to tell the people that story, because I think that one is definitely worth telling.
Yeah. It was last week, and my opponent had Kyler Murray going Monday night, and I turned on my NFL Network in the morning or my Twitter, and it said that Kyler Murray was not expected to play. So that morning, I found out that he does not have a backup plan. So I picked up both Colt McCoy and Jimmy Garoppolo from waivers. So he could not add a starting quarterback. I dropped Rashad White. I dropped Michael Gallup. I dropped valuable pieces just to block him because it bought me a win. If he would have added and started those players, I would have lost my matchup. And
you were what at the time? 5-5?
Yeah, something like that, or just under 500, and he was first place in the league, so it hurt less for him. And
but it felt like the world to you.
It was the world for me. So if this is that time and you're up with the news and you know what's going on, you should absolutely try to stay active. Mac and I are in so many leagues, we can't necessarily do that all the time.
Yeah,
but if
when you can. When you can, it's awesome.
When you can, it's awesome.
Yeah, when you told me that, I mean, it was so funny. I was just I couldn't help but laugh because I knew who you did it to, but I also just couldn't help but applaud. Such a savvy move.
Yeah,
so good.
It was great. This is the time too. One of our longtime subscribers, Snap Army member Eric, check to see who people are dropping.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very savvy move. If you don't need someone, or if you just put in low bids for everyone, or you don't have high waiver priority, check to see who people are dropping. Because I've seen it a lot where these like high value players, like Kenyon Drake, for example, he's a highly dropped player. I think a despite J.K. Dobbins coming back and Gus
Yeah,
Edwards being involved and Kenyon Drake having a bad week, I think he's deservedly rostered if you can afford to.
sure.
Running backs, I mean, running backs and Paris Campbell too. Paris Campbell's getting dropped like crazy. He's still a valuable asset to have if you don't need to start him right away. I would just stash him.
Yeah, no, I agree. Let's go through some notable injury news before we jump into waivers, because we need to have that background info before we jump into suggesting who to pick up and why. Darnell Mooney out for the season. He's gone to the IR. Aaron Rodgers is struggling with an oblique injury. He says he plans on playing, but
Yeah.
for fantasy purposes, you probably haven't been playing Rodgers unless you play in a 2QB or a super flex league. Najee Harris left the game last night with an abdominal injury. This one is probably not going to keep him out for too long, maybe a week or two at most. So I do expect that Najee will be back quite quick, but we'll see how this one plays out. Damian Harris is not expected to play this week. He's considered week to week at the moment. So if you are a Ramondre Stevenson owner, you are thrilled. Then we've got Elijah Mitchell going to miss the rest of the fantasy season, 6 to 8 weeks with a knee injury. It's expected to be an MCL sprain on Sunday. So that one, I was very frustrated with his usage, even though the team as a whole is doing well. I just don't understand, 4 plays inside the goal to go situation and Christian McCaffrey doesn't get a touch. It boggles my mind how that could even happen, whether it's Eli Mitchell's turn with the ball or not. I mean, you don't trade what you did for Christian McCaffrey to not get him involved. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
The usage around McCaffrey post his massive 37-point game has been frustrating for most fantasy owners.
Big time.
Where you thought you had the number one running back going forward,
Mm-hmm.
and he really hasn't been that. They have so many weapons. I mean, he's someone that we should talk about later on.
Agreed.
And just he's a little bit banged up as well. He was hurt, so they are going to want to save him for the playoffs. I think that's still in their minds. The 49ers seem to be like a juggernaut team. They're poised for the playoffs. I don't know what his usage is going to be rest of the season. He's still going to be playing, but he just might not be that league winner that we maybe thought he was.
I hope things change.
Me too.
When you see him out there, throw a touchdown, run a touchdown, and catch a touchdown. It's like, man, this guy can do it all. Just let him do what he does, and then you just have him spelled by Eli Mitchell for half of the snaps. It just doesn't make sense. Either way, Allen Robinson, surprising that he went on to the IR. He's going to be done for the remainder of the season.
Yeah.
Likely Matt Stafford as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's frustrating.
It's very frustrating. We thought we lost Travis Etienne as well, but it looks like he's going to be back. So that's going to be one piece of news that we sort of talk about tonight as JaMychal Hasty's name will come up in the waivers is, should you actually spend fab on him after a big performance, or should you take it with a grain of salt because we got the news that Travis Etienne is expected to play moving forward. We'll have some different outlook when it comes to Michael Carter from the New York Jets. He has an ankle sprain, and we're unsure right now as to the severity of that injury. So how that will play out for somebody like Zonovan Knight, who we're going to talk about in the waiver section, it'll be interesting.
We do need to discuss defenses this week, Mac.
Yes, because we do.
Right now, your lineup might be all set to go, and you did not get hit with the injury bug. There's some spicy defenses. There's a big ones that you might be dropping, like the Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs, and you got to start defenses, and it's a big one this week. And going forward, we'll be doing defensive rankings as we get into the fantasy playoffs.
I doubled down last week on the Dolphins, and boy, was I happy.
Yeah.
Houston just looks so nice, and
And
Cleveland Browns are widely available
I
this
was
week.
just going to say the Cleveland Browns, after playing Buffalo, Tampa Bay these past 2 weeks, it's been Miami, Buffalo, Tampa Bay. They're owned or they're available in just about every single league.
Yeah, and it's might be just the chalkiest play
Yeah.
of the week.
Yeah.
Look, let's get into the waivers here. I'll flip it over to you. Number one ad. We're going with Zay Jones, currently 38% owned on Sleeper, coming off a massive game, 11 receptions for 145 yards.
He's a great start. If you've been struggling at the wide receiver position, they play Detroit this week. It's going to be a great matchup.
Mm-hmm.
If you need a wide receiver, if you've been struggling like producer Scott has in our big 16 team league with his wide receivers, I would be concerned because I'm playing Scotty this week. If Zay Jones is available and he picks him up and starts him, I'm in trouble because I think this is going to be a high scoring game. Both teams are going to score a lot. There should be no reason why Zay Jones falters this week against Detroit. Now, going forward, it's a gauntlet of terrible matches.
Next week's
Tennessee,
okay, though. Tennessee is decent for receivers.
right? But then Dallas, the Jets are tough
Yeah.
ones.
Dallas, the Jets, but then he gets Houston in
Which is
championship week. So
good
you
again.
could be starting him 3 of the next 5
Yeah.
with some confidence. And that's not to say that he couldn't produce for you in those Dallas and New York matchups, if you've lost some notable pieces. But yeah, for sure, it's crazy to see him, you know, for the second time this year, have 10 or more receptions and not get into the end zone and just have a wide receiver 5 day. You know, like he's 5th overall wide receiver, didn't get into the end zone. Crazy.
What's his name? Zay Jacoby Jones.
You mean Jacoby Myers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
He's only had 1 touchdown on the season. It's kind of crazy too.
Yeah.
But Sid says the wide receiver 34, just inside of wide receiver 3.
If you're looking at Sleeper and you're seeing the most highly added wide receivers, we've got Richie James, Matt Collins, Elijah Moore, Isaiah McKenzie, Darius Slayton. Any of those players that you are staying away from, that you think it was a mirage, Mac? Are you interested in any of them, or you're just going to stay away? What are your thoughts on those guys?
I think the Elijah Moore one is going to be a spot that a lot of people want to go to because they know what Elijah Moore can be.
Can be, yes.
Can be and has been in the past. And it was so nice to see him and Mike White hook up and get into the end zone. And it's like, oh, hey, Elijah Moore, like, where have you been?
Yeah.
But let's also acknowledge that this was basically one play. He had 2 targets, 2 receptions, 64 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
And one of those plays was big. He averaged 32 yards per touch.
Yeah.
It was one play that got him into the end zone. I'm not going to overreact, even though I like Mike White a lot for fantasy purposes at quarterback. I'm not going to overreact to the name and one big play and one big week. So tempering expectations moving forward.
That's what it's going to be. It's, Mike White and the Jets had the best matchup you could possibly have against Chicago.
Yeah.
They sold away any valuable piece. That defense is just, they don't have anyone right now. So it looked great. I don't know if it's going to look as, like, Minnesota's defense isn't stout by any means, but it's not going to look as good against them. And then Buffalo the week after, it'll be tough. So I would not be, if he only plays 35% of snaps, I don't expect 64 yards and a touchdown.
No, I would love to see him get more involved in the offense. I think he's a really solid route runner, very sure-handed. Like, he should be getting opportunities. We'll see if that plays itself out. But I'm not willing to go out on a limb and grab him over somebody like Zay Jones, who's had a variety of games with
Not
10
even
10 or
close.
more targets, right? Like the volume is there. Trevor Lawrence is having a little bit of a sophomore spring, let's just say, instead of a slump. I like what I see.
If for whatever reason Treylon Burks or Michael Gallup are available on your waivers, prioritize them, but they're highly owned in most leagues. Anyone, if we're going to stay on wide receivers, anyone that's being added right now that you like. Isaiah McKenzie had a big week.
He did.
He busted the week before. What are you going to do with Isaiah McKenzie? He's just a Dawson Knox of the wide receivers.
Well, we've always like talked about who's going to win that job for the Bills in the slot, and it's clearly Isaiah McKenzie's role. It's just not a role that is relied upon like we thought. The ball just does get spread around. Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs, McKenzie, the running backs, Josh Allen, just keeping it himself. Like, there's a lot of opportunity. The volume's just not quite what I would want, but in a pinch, I would start Isaiah McKenzie, no problem.
It's the upside play, right? I mean, you
Because
want
playing in a
teams.
high-powered offense is exactly why you want to start those guys like Marquez Valdes-Scantling or Sky Moore. It's like, I want a piece of the Chiefs.
Yeah, exactly.
And you do it. Other names that come to mind, I mean, Darius Slayton would be one that I would be willing to roster at this point in time, given that they have really no other options. And to do a quick price check, Treylon Burks currently 68% owned on Sleeper. So definitely available.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's go to number 2, Zonovan Knight. If you have no idea who that is, he plays for the New York Jets, and he's going to be what looks like the next man up in New York.
Seems
with
that
Michael
way.
Carter. Yeah, with Michael Carter dealing with a lower body injury.
So
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this one.
So James Robinson being a healthy scratch against the Bears was very surprising. I don't know why they traded for him just to bench him.
Yeah.
And it looked like things were really lining up great for a huge Michael Carter game.
Yep.
Against Chicago. It looked so nice for him. It's terrible that he got hurt. I can't imagine that he is a healthy scratch again. So he will be active against Minnesota this week. There's no question. Now, who's going to get the lead role? I mean, Zonovan Knight looked great. 14 attempts, 69 yards, 3 receptions, 34 yards. Great outing against Chicago. But are they going to? He hasn't had a touch this year. That's his first touch in the NFL. He looked great.
Well, so he was elevated off of the practice squad to take James Robinson's role.
Yeah.
And for a while there, they were going 3-back system. They had Ty Johnson coming in. They had Zonovan Knight.
Even when Michael Carter was healthy?
Correct. Yeah, Ty Johnson was coming in on third downs. And then Zonovan Knight was actually sprinkled in here and there. So they kind of made this decision pre-injury. I agree with you. I think James Robinson's going to come back. But I was listening to an interview that Robert Saleh had post-game, and they were talking about what does this backfield need to, help the offense out. Talking about Zach Wilson and the quarterback problems. And he's like, we just need somebody who can get downhill north-south really quick. And Zonovan Knight does that. We really like his run style. And I'm listening to that going, is that just coach speak, a guy talking up his player and giving him confidence, or do they actually really like what he brings to the table? And after, 103 scrimmage yards in his NFL debut, I'm somewhat sold that he could be a piece of the offense for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it feels like a trap to me. I get it. If you're desperate and you lost some players, you may have lost Najee, or you had Michael Carter starting, or you're just in a tough spot. We're assuming that Travis Etienne is going to play this week, but you still need to have some insurance. Then you know what? I would spend some fab on Zonovan Knight. I need to temper expectations. I think it could be a committee backfield. Ty Johnson will be involved. James Robinson will be involved. How much value is there in that backfield? Minnesota's defense is pretty susceptible to run and pass, but I don't know. I'm a little worried, but I get it. In a spot start, if you're desperate, deep league, I think he should be the number 1 running back start this week.
Right.
I just don't have a ton of confidence.
That's where I'm at is if I need a running back, he's my number one
Right.
target.
Yep.
And the matchup with Minnesota is okay. The week after Buffalo, we've seen them be a little bit susceptible on the ground.
Definitely.
It's not the best matchup, but it's also not the worst. After that, though, Detroit, Jacksonville, Seattle. So 3 decent matchups to close out the year, especially Seattle in week 17 is awesome. So I like this as a little bit of a stash. He's an undrafted free agent, made his first start this week. We'll see what he does next week. And we'll also see how the Michael Carter ankle injury plays itself out. But this could be a guy that has some lasting value. Whereas a couple of these other names we're going to bring up, like this guy right here, Benny Snell, is a player that I think when you talk about confusing backfield, this is one of them.
Right. So Jaylen Warren, what's his status?
Well, I think Jaylen Warren is going to be available. I think Anthony McFarland's going to be utilized, and I think Benny Snell's going to be utilized too. Like Benny Snell has had ample opportunity to take this job to cement his role in the offense, and he has been unable to do so because even though he has some decent vision, and like he can sort of be patient behind the line and wait for opportunities to present themselves. He only takes what he's blocked, and he isn't explosive. You know, he's like James Robinson in a sense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. His style is very, very like stoic and passive. So I don't think Benny Snell is going to just be this clear cut back. But you look on Sleeper right now, and you go to the trending. He's number 2 ads, almost 400,000 ads. I just don't think that is the play this week at running back. I think this is going to be a committee approach. I think it's going to be a rotation of these 3, and I'm not looking to roster any one of them, but it seems like the majority of people are going the Benny Snell route. And I think you're going to be disappointed, especially if Najee comes back in a week or 2.
Yeah, yeah. We still don't know is abdominal abdominal.
There you go.
Injury. So producer Scott was playing against Najee Harris this week.
Ooh.
After Najee's last touch right before half, Scotty was up by 0.11 fantasy points.
Don't.
And he was ruled out after that. He snuck out a victory.
I didn't see his last play of the game, but I thought you were going to be like, he got tackled for a loss.
No, it was like a 2-yard play.
Could you imagine?
I know. That would have been crazy. Yeah, it was quite lucky, quite fortunate. It's like the dream come true when he gets in the end zone. Okay, you're only up by 2 points. Okay, what's gonna happen? And then of course a guy gets hurt halfway through the game. So
man,
sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, right?
Shout out to producer Scott. Yeah, absolutely it is.
Hey, he needed that W. Him and I are tied for top of the division, and we face off this week for the division title. I mean, there's still 2 weeks left, but it's a big matchup.
Deciding game.
It's a deciding game.
I love that. Let's go to another player I don't think you should add this week coming off a big game. That's Jaguars, JaMycal Hasty, who was filling in for Travis Etienne. 17 touches, 95 yards, and a touchdown, was the running back 7 on the week, played 78% of snaps. What's so frustrating about watching JaMycal Hasty just absolutely cook the Baltimore Ravens was that should have been Travis Etienne.
Yeah, it should have.
Yeah. But it wasn't. But Travis Etienne has come out and said, I'm good to go for next week. Don't be concerned. And while we shouldn't always listen to the players, I think this one is a definitive, this guy's going to play, and it's going to be good against the Detroit Lions. So I don't think you should add JaMycal Hasty, but to Landon's point, if you are a Travis Etienne owner and are worried about this foot injury re-aggravating itself and you want to have some insurance, this might be a good add. I'm just afraid of what you might have to pay to get him on your team.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't be overspending on JaMycal. And with the news that Travis Etienne is good to go, you shouldn't have to spend much to get him. So
Agreed.
only add him if you are the Travis Etienne owner and only spend a couple fab, or if you have a mid to late priority and you say you lost to Darnell Mooney, great example, sure, or Allen Robinson, I guess. Add him, spot him. If Travis Etienne is ruled out late on Sunday, that would be just heartbreaking. Then you have what you know is the lone back and for the Jaguars in a very, very good matchup.
Totally agree. I want to get your temperature on this guy as I continue typing his name in. His snap share has risen week over week. 3 weeks ago, week 9, it was 0. Then it was 27, 55, and this last week, a resounding 70% of snaps, currently only 44% owned. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Kyren Williams.
Oh my God, you are a psychic. It is Kyren Williams for the Los Angeles Rams. Now, Cam Akers has also been getting some steady work. They've been kind of running a 2-back system, but Kyren is involved in the passing game as he has been since inserting himself into this offense. 3, 2, 3 targets the last couple games. Fantasy points going up, snaps going up. What do we think about Kyren? Is he worth an ad? Would you put him over Zonovan Knight? Where does he fall in your priority?
If I need a running back, he is, and I'm not the Travis Etienne owner. I think he is third. I think he has a lot of potential. The problem is right now is that the Rams are tire fire.
Yeah, they are.
And Seattle's defense has been playing very good. I know they did not this past week against Josh Jacobs.
Yep.
RIP any teams who had to play against him.
Woo, that was so much fun, man. So much fun.
I think Jacobs is the running back one on the season.
He is the number one, yes.
Yeah. What a world we live in. So I think Howard Williams actually is great long term. I love rookies. I like Kyren Williams has been on my radar. It's just hard to roster these long shot running backs.
Yeah.
So I think he's a fine ad. I'm not necessarily wanting to start him, but against Vegas, Green Bay, the following 2 weeks, he's feels like a very safe running back to get 14 to 17 opportunities. If he gets in the end zone, you're happy. He has not been efficient with his rushes, but he's the guy that's getting opportunities. So he's someone that I actually like a little bit more long term. Young guy, he'll get a look. They know what Cam Akers is, and they're trying to find out what Kyren Williams is.
I like Kyren as an ad. Pass catching running back who's on the field a ton. I agree the offense is not great, but in a pinch, I'm going to start him, and I'll probably do it over, if you're adding Benny Snell or Jermichael Hasty, I would prioritize him over those two. I want to move on to Deshaun Watson as just a friendly reminder. Once again, only 59% owned in sleeper leagues. He is eligible to play this week, and he's going to do so against the Houston Texans in Houston.
Yeah.
What parity the NFL has where this guy is basically gone for the better part of 2 years and returns to his old stomping grounds the first night.
I was doing the rankings earlier this evening.
Yeah, where do you put him?
I have him as a top 12 quarterback this week.
I think that's reasonable.
I have him ahead of Trevor Lawrence and Tom Brady.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Trevor Lawrence is playing Detroit, really good matchup. And if you have Trevor Lawrence, I'm not dropping him to start Deshaun Watson. They're back to back. Just start Trevor Lawrence and don't worry about it. But if you had a Jimmy Garoppolo that you were streaming this past week, I would stream him over Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff. I mean, Daniel Jones. If you were in a tough spot this past week, I would love to roll Deshaun Watson out rest of season. But all the studs, even Geno Smith, who's been very good, I'm going to start Geno over Deshaun Watson. I think there's a chance that he's elite and he's the number one quarterback. Well, but there's a chance that he's rusty as well, and that Nick Chubb runs in 3 touchdowns because it's Houston.
Yeah, and I think like there's probably going to be some rust. It might be ugly, but what if it's not? What if it's just riding a bike for Deshaun Watson? He's just
I know.
clean, and it's like, oh yeah, remember this guy who was so good? Man, no, I'm adding him, um, for sure. I have in a bunch of leagues. I haven't left it this late, but if you have not added him, I think it's worth a shot. He could be someone who literally helps win your league. He's got Houston this week, then he's got Cincinnati, Baltimore, New Orleans, and Washington in championship week. For the most part, good matchups. The only one that really I don't love is the New Orleans Saints, but it's
But with a
Deshaun Watson.
quarterback of, in theory, that caliber, it doesn't really
It
matter.
doesn't matter. Yep. I
But
do wanna ask you about 2 other quarterbacks before we get
sure.
into some questions here.
Yep.
If you're in a 2 QB or super flex league, who would you be prioritizing, Mike White or Jordan Love?
That's a great question.
'Cause, look, I've been very vocal on my disdain for Jordan Love and how they went about picking him, but I gotta be honest, he looked really good for
Well,
that last quarter of play. He looked solid.
I would prioritize Mike White because I think there's a chance that Rodgers plays. We
For sure.
know
Yep.
we know that Mike White is starting, so I would play him.
And
But
should start for the rest of the season, right?
correct.
This is a team that's not, like, folding up for draft
Yeah,
picks. This is a team that's, like, trying to win.
yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. Zach
and
Wilson's
Mike White
closer
is
to Johnny Manziel than he is a NFL starter.
yeah,
Sorry, guys.
it's a great comp.
Jordan Love looked good. I think
He did.
the future is bright for Green Bay. It's
I was just
funny
very
that
impressed with the cleanliness and the timing of his throws, like, the crosser to Christian Watson was
it was a
spot on.
pretty easy throw, though.
It was, but, like, based on what we'd seen from Jordan Love, like, in preseason, for example, it was sloppy. Like,
Right.
he had no chemistry with the receivers, throws
Yeah.
were late and behind, and he just looked exactly like what I thought Jordan Love would look like. It was very different. Like, he made some really nice throws, a couple to the sideline. He managed this team in a competitive game script for 15 minutes, the fourth quarter. Like, I was impressed, but I do agree with you. Mike White is the ad for the probably longer term value. I do think Aaron Rodgers plays, but when this team is eliminated mathematically, we could see more Jordan Love.
Any tight end streamers you like this week? Foster Moreau comes to mind.
Yep.
46% owned. Got in the end zone. Had 7 targets. Now I featured Moreau. I think I did anyways in our starts of the week because Seattle is the easiest matchup possible
Yeah.
for tight ends. Chargers are a little bit more difficult, but I still think. I mean, he's a classic 3 for 33 and a touchdown. That's what he's been getting every single week, pretty much. So that's what you're going to rely on for Foster Moreau.
The one
Jelani Woods had a
I
huge game last week, Matt,
That's
or
what I was
last
gonna
night.
bring up. That was one name I wanted to bring up. And it's funny, like, I feel like in order to play tight end for the Colts, you have to be like 6'6" or greater, and you need to be at least 250 pounds.
He qualifies 6'7",
6'7",
253.
253. It's like him and Mo Alley Cox are they just look like twins out there.
Yeah.
They are gigantic men.
Yeah.
But 9 targets, 8 receptions, 98 yards. And he had a couple drops. Like, I thought Matt
Well,
Ryan was
one.
going
Would
away
have had
from
one
him.
drop.
Did he have 1 or 2?
Well, he only had 9 targets. He had 8 receptions.
Good math. Yep. But it was a bad drop. Like, it was a I can remember the play. He had it for a first down, right on the numbers, hands straight up, and the hands are like 2 of mine put together, and the ball goes right through his hands, hits him in the shoulder pad, and bounces off. And
Right.
Matt Ryan's just sitting there like, "Bro, like, I need you to make that catch." And I'm
But
just like, "Just keep giving it to 28. Like, forget Jelani Woods.
yeah.
Keep giving the ball to Jonathan Taylor." And then he went back to him 8 more times. It was crazy.
My starts of the week this past week hit hard.
They did.
Miles Sanders
Yeah.
had a career high in rushing yards.
Yes, he did.
Michael Pittman came through last week
He did.
or last night again. As I said, same thing I said twice in a row.
It's okay.
And then, my tight end had a touchdown. I don't remember who it was at quarterback. Maybe Geno Smith. I don't think he had a great game.
He was okay. Our guy Jeff Wilson was decent before going out.
Yeah, we told a lot of people to start him.
We did. Yep.
So
and Chris Godwin. Hey, Chris Godwin, my guy.
Huge game. Love that. Game. And I already saw some Mike Evans questions from Paz that we will discuss very shortly. Mac, the Cleveland defense is the top ad, or Seattle, I think, is the number kind of 1 and 2 ad of the week. What are your thoughts?
I'm good with it.
Seattle plays the Rams, and then obviously the Browns play Houston.
Yeah, sorry, I have to switch over to a league that I have defenses in so I can see some ownership.
Tampa Bay might also be a...
Yeah, Seattle at the LA Rams could be really ugly.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns are only 5% rostered in sleeper leagues. I think that could be very, very nice. I also don't mind the Green Bay Packers playing the Chicago Bears this week. Only 22% rostered.
Don't necessarily know who the quarterback is, right?
I was going to say, if there's no Justin Fields, I'm obviously a little bit more bullish on that play than I would be with him. But either way, I think they're a decent option. But I agree. Cleveland Browns are number 1. Seattle Seahawks number 2. Packers without Fields is a definite 3 for me. And then from there, it gets a little bit murky.
Yeah, Washington football team at the Giants.
I was going to say, actually, the Giants against the football team.
Yeah, both are.
The Commanders.
The Manders. The
Commanders. Outside of that, I think everybody else we'd be talking about would be already taken.
Pittsburgh at Atlanta?
No, thank you.
No?
No.
The New York Jets are probably owned.
The Jets are widely owned, yeah.
Yeah. Not going to play Tennessee at Philadelphia. Yeah.
I am not.
No.
That's end of list.
End of list. So
let's get to the questions here. EZ, would you target to scoop, or sorry, who would you target to scoop up when they are dropped after waivers?
Yeah, I mentioned a couple at the start. I would look at defenses. Like if you have room on your bench, look at defenses that are dropped and then check out their schedule.
Sure.
That's kind of a sneaky thing. If say the Jets are being dropped, like on sleeper, they're trending down. Look to add them for, man, you're looking at Jacksonville, kind of a 1 week. The Jets kind of have a bad schedule. They have Buffalo, Detroit, Jacksonville. But
right. And the 2 teams on bye this week, remind me, I believe it's the Arizona Cardinals.
They are
on bye. And who else, sorry?
I don't recall right now.
Arizona Cardinals for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of the other team.
There is here. Let me see. It's week. Oh, Panthers. Because
that's why. Who's rostering Panthers? That's right. Cardinals are gonna hurt some people, especially with Marquise Brown coming back, looking good, by the way.
Yeah, looked really good. Impressed. I like to see that. So in week 14, when they're back, you can start him with confidence. Week 14, Falcons, Bears, Packers, Colts, Saints, Commanders.
It's the most outrageous. I understand Thanksgiving is really important in America, but it's okay. We can have some teams on bye.
I know.
Or we could just share the wealth a little bit, Like what's wrong with giving people more time with their families?
Like, and
why have 12 teams on bye on week 6 teams on bye?
The week 14 bye is such a disadvantage for teams.
Yeah, you need to get into the playoffs, and it's like, oh, you don't have Aaron Jones or Jonathan Taylor.
Well, I actually meant for like NFL teams. Like these guys haven't had a break in 13 weeks.
For 13 weeks. That's also true.
Yeah. But yes, I agree. For fantasy teams, this really hurts. You gotta, exactly. Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Montgomery. There's some Olave. There's a lot of good players on bye in week 14.
Dangerous Dave coming in with a question that's gonna hurt my brain. Rest of season question in a full PPR league. What 3 wide receivers would we choose between Devontae Smith, Garrett Wilson, Treylon Burks, Hollywood Brown, and Christian Watson? Oh my gosh.
Christian Watson, man. I talked about, like, I use him now, him and Garrett Wilson as an example of these high upside rookies. Like,
I'll put a caveat in here. As long as Mike White's playing quarterback, I want Garrett Wilson.
yeah, man.
He hyper targets 17, and Garrett Wilson put some people in an absolute box this week. Like
Mhm.
the one touchdown he had going to the corner, he made just a little change of direction at like almost the goal line. He left that Ravens defender, or sorry, not Ravens. Who they play? Bears. He left that Bears receiver just on the ground. It was incredible. Such a good route runner. And coming out, like that's why we're like, this guy's so polished. He's so pro ready. And then you got Justin Fields just throwing, or sorry, Zach Wilson just throwing muffins to him.
I know. It's terrible.
So as long as Mike White's playing quarterback, I'll take Garrett Wilson. I kind of think that Devontae Smith isn't going to make this list rest of season.
No,
I want Garrett Wilson. I want Hollywood Brown.
I think for me, Treylon Burks is out.
Oh man, it's so like Treylon Burks has been good.
Him and Christian Watson are kind of similar.
I think right now you would want to roll Christian Watson though.
It feels like it. I mean, he's fast. All you need to do is get the ball in his hands, and he could do anything with it. But
Do you want to know Christian Watson's fantasy finishes the last couple weeks?
I know, man. I know. You know it's gonna end, though. You know it's gonna end.
I totally understand, but he kept it up with Jordan Love.
He had that one reception saved his day. He was doing nothing before that.
Let's talk about it. Wide receiver 8 this past week, 4 for 110 and a score. The week before, wide receiver 5, 4 for 48 and 2, and then wide receiver 2, 4 for 107 and 3. 6 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks, averaging 2 a week, and 8 targets, 6 targets, 6 targets. Very efficient, coming off an 18 per catch game. He just has that big play in him. And the reason why I say no Devontae Smith in this lineup is because I think this offense is just moving the ball so well on the ground with both Miles Sanders and Jalen Hurts. When they're moving it through the air, it's with efficiency, but he's not opposed to looking Quez Watkins' way. And if and when Dallas Goedert comes back, like he's going to be a squeaky wheel that gets some grease. So I kind of brought it up in the start sit this week of why I didn't want to suggest Devontae Smith over a lot of people is because I think he can get lost in translation sometimes. Like he just gets forgotten about.
What's nice though is he is getting targets.
He is.
9 targets last week, 9 the week before, 8 the week before that. The targets are there. He only caught 4 of them. I mean, he had tough matchups against Green Bay. That's why I was going away from him, is because of his matchup. But at least the targets are there. If Christian Watson had those kind of targets, man, he'd have 250 yards.
That's what I'm saying.
But he doesn't. He only has, what's his max targets on the year?
He had 4? 8.
Okay. 8 against Dallas.
Last 3 games, 8, 6, and 6.
Right. Okay, so not bad.
6 touchdowns, though.
I know.
I agree. It's going to come to an end, but it's fun while it lasts. 3 top 10 finishes in a row. I'm going to go Garrett Wilson, Hollywood Brown, Christian Watson.
I'm going to go Garrett Wilson, Hollywood Brown, and Devontae Smith.
Okay. Paz, you're 6 and 6. It's not the end of the world, brother. 6 and 6 is right in that wheelhouse in most leagues to make the playoffs. So if you can just get to, maybe your goal by week 14 is to get to, 8 and 6 or 7 and 7 at worst. I think that probably gets you a shot.
Love it.
Edward wants to know who do we think won the trade in a full PPR league, Kamara and Waddle for ETN and Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Those are some big names. I think I'd
still want the Kamara Waddle side.
I was going to go the other way. It's close. It's close. Assuming ETN is healthy. And I think
That's
we
that's that's the
agree that
only question mark that I have. I know Kamara's been
yeah.
disappointing.
Mhm.
Waddle has been the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Amon-Ra has been the exact opposite. In a PPR league, he's an absolute slot machine. He just gets work. If
Yeah.
Travis Etienne was healthy and had just come off a big game, that would probably be enough recency bias to sway me the other way. But
Yeah.
with the uncertainty of him, I think I still lean Kamara Waddle. But I mean, this is so close.
Yeah. Kamara, I think, has upside. I did a video on him today. He does have his bye week, which is also something maybe to consider.
Fair.
Um, so you'll be without him week 14.
Yep.
But after that, it's Atlanta, Cleveland, Philly, which is okay. This week I think is gonna be fine. He's getting targets. In a PPR league, he's still running back 15, which is
Mhm.
ahead of Travis Etienne. Yes, he had that monster game against Las Vegas, but he got 7 targets this past week, so he's fine in full PPR leagues.
Yep.
So fair trade, good trade. A lot of elite players.
It's tough to say who truly wins. I think given, week to week, I could have a different
I
answer. It's
know.
that close.
Yeah.
Would we rather have Swift or Rashad White rest of season if our playoffs locked? God, I hate this question.
Because the answer is Rashad White.
Yeah, exactly. I'm my confidence in Swift. My confidence in Swift remains high. My confidence for this team to change his role at this point is low.
Mhm.
I think I'm just accepting the fact that Jamal Williams is going to continue to get the majority of the work. And if you're going to play DeAndre Swift, you have to hope for efficiency. And he's like, look, he was on the field for the most he's been in the last 4 or 5 weeks. He had like 8 targets, I think it was.
Yep. Yep.
So like when he's on the field, he's being utilized selectively, but that's not what we drafted DeAndre Swift for. If you look back to week 1, that's what we drafted DeAndre Swift for. It was to have 30-point games and win you weeks, and this is just not the player that in
Yeah.
the role that we thought he should have. So I'm gonna go Rashad White. It sucks to say, but I think it's the right answer.
Yeah, we still don't necessarily know Fournette and his health situation. It was great to see Rashad White
I
really
wanted more
perform
from
well.
him. I wanted more from him. I
Did you?
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was good. Don't get me wrong. He looked good at
Yeah.
times, but I thought we were gonna get more. They were gonna get a bigger game.
He didn't get in the end zone. That was the problem because he
Yeah.
had 9 receptions,
Yeah.
which is really nice in any full PPR league. But I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
it was
were
because he didn't get in the end zone. It's because we were disappointed. Is the reason
it's
we
like
were
one of those
disappointed.
games. Remember earlier on Sunday when we were talking and we were talking about Ramondre Stevenson, and I'm like, "Oh no, he had 9 receptions." And you're like, "Oh, really?" Like
Yeah.
I missed that. Um
Yeah.
that Thanksgiving game, it just was like, "Oh, he didn't score," so it just kind of got away from me, but it's like,
I
"No, yeah.
almost identical games.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it kind of feels like after you say
It
that."
was very much identical games. We were 15 fantasy points in half PPR leagues. Um,
With 9 receptions apiece
9 receptions. That's crazy.
and 10 targets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that pass catching can save you for sure, and I think that's, Swift has that upside, but if Rashad White is the lead back or Fournette's out longer term, you gotta go with Rashad. Kyron or Zonovan for waivers. We said Zonovan over Kyron. And then Odell Beckham or Jameson Williams. I would be targeting Odell Beckham. I do think Jameson Williams is fantastic. We just don't know when we're going to see him or what his role will be.
And
I think we will see him.
we don't know when we're gonna see Odell either, but
True. I think there's a
um,
likelihood we see him before we see Jameson Williams.
yeah, it feels like he's gonna be with the Cowboys. Like it's a 2-to-1 odds in Vegas for him to go to the Cowboys, which is
Well, that's the other side of the coin here is I know Jameson Williams is playing football for the Detroit Lions,
pretty good.
which is
Pretty
not
good.
bad. No, not bad.
Yeah.
But Odell Beckham could literally land anywhere in the most advantageous position ever. So I think there's more upside with Odell. I would shoot for that, and I think when he gets rostered, he'll find his way onto the field quite quickly, because that's just the type of player that he is, and that's why teams would be rostering him to make a playoff run. So we'll see, but I would go Odell.
Yep. Unless you're in a keeper league.
Unless you're in a keeper league, then it's Jameson Williams all day.
Yeah.
Nick got Dalvin Cook and Josh Jacobs. Samaje Perine is my only backup. Who should I try to pick up? Zonovan Knight.
Sure. Yeah. I think he's, if you need a spot start, but I feel like, Nick, that you have probably a better flex than Zonovan Knight.
And you probably have more availability on your waiver wire. What waiver wire I'm looking in is a 12-team half PPR league. So the availability is much lower, but for sure, Knight is available on all waiver wires. He's currently 0% owned.
Correct.
Yeah. No one knew who he was before this week.
Yeah. Yeah, you might have Isaiah Pacheco on waivers. I don't know. Like you just don't know who's on waivers right now. But
what do you think about Millie here wanting to grab Benny Snell to go with the Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren assets? Is it one too many pieces on the same team?
I think it's one too many. If you wanted to drop Jaylen Warren
for Benny Snell,
sure, fine. It's a hamstring injury for Warren, so those can be very tricky. We don't know when or if he'll be back. If all the backups were healthy, Warren is the one to own. That's why you have them as their handcuff Millie, which was a good move, which is unfortunate to happen that way. But yeah, I'd be dropping Warren to pick up Snell. It's fine.
I agree.
Yeah.
Paz says he feels like benching Mike Evans this week. Dude has been letting him down.
Mm-hmm.
Ayuk or Burks gonna have bigger games this week. I'm okay with the Mike Evans bench. Clearly, you cannot drop him, but I'm okay with the bench. This last game was certainly not what we expected. But you look at his log, 9 targets, only caught 2 of them.
Yeah.
Tom Brady just continually overthrowing him. But this is kind of what you get with Mike Evans. Like you get stinkers and you get league-winning performances like you saw in week 4 against Kansas City. Wide receiver 1 finish. So you got to take the good with the bad with Mike Evans, but Chris Godwin getting the majority of the work there.
That was crazy. The amount of targets. What did he have? 20 targets?
No, it was like 14.
13, but 12 receptions. Only missed 1.
I know. Well, look at his average depth of the target, though.
I know. It's terrible.
Yeah. He had 12 catches for 110 yards. Like he's under 10 a catch total, but he's the safety valve and Brady's just going to keep feeding him. So a lot of shots downfield for Mike Evans, a lot of overthrown balls, but 9 targets for Mike Evans. I'm going to go back to him in the leagues I have him, but I don't mind you pivoting to Brandon Ayuk, who's been hot. So I'm okay with going Ayuk.
Yeah, it's close. I will probably have Mike Evans ranked higher than Brandon Ayuk this week. It's just one of those things where if you have that feeling, Paz, and you like Brandon Ayuk, you can't. I'm not going to talk you out of it because objectively,
it's just when Mike Evans has the 2 touchdown game for 120 yards, and you're sitting there kicking yourself like, why did I sit my second or third overall pick?
Yeah. No, he just hasn't had that since week 4.
Couple weeks, yeah. Would we trade Fields and Zay Jones for Justin Herbert? 10-2 in a 12-man league, currently starting Zay at the flex and have Donovan Peoples-Jones on my bench. Very interesting. I don't mind it. Zay Jones at the flex last week is really why you're 10-2. Like making good moves like that is awesome. I don't think you're in a position to panic with Justin Fields. That's the one thing. We don't know when he's coming back though. We'd like to optimistically say it's this week. I just don't think it will be.
Mm-hmm.
He also has a week 14 bye. So He is probably not going to play against the Packers, and then he'll take another week in week 14. When he comes back, though, Philly, Buffalo, Detroit. Do you want to play him against Philly or Buffalo in weeks 15 and 16? The answer for me there is no. So realistically, you're not going to have Justin Fields until week 17. And yes, it's a great matchup against the Detroit Lions.
Yep.
In a dome when weather could potentially be hazardous around the NFL. But I'm not going to keep him for that one game. You got to find other options, and I think Justin Herbert could be a really, really good option. So
Yeah,
Donovan Peoples-Jones could be also extremely solid with Deshaun Watson coming back.
Yep. I think, could you get a little throw in call in? Like, could you get someone that he's going to drop, or just to
Exactly
sweeten the deal a little bit? I know you have DPJ, but he did have a bad week, so it's kind of like,
yeah.
I mean, I agree with Mac though. With Watson, it could be really, really good. I would stash him. I would not drop him, obviously, after one bad week. So
I like your throw in there, Landon. Whoever your trade partner is going to drop in this 2-for-1, just get them to throw it back to you as a 2-2.
yeah, even if it's a defense, like, who cares? Like,
Sure.
rostering 2 defenses right now isn't a bad strategy. Like, coming up in the next few weeks, we'll probably do some like playoff strategy videos to like get people ready. Look at the playoff schedule for defenses, and that's going to make a huge difference come playoff time.
Yeah. Joe wants to know Mike White or Jared Goff this week. I love it.
I'll be honest, neither are in my top 12, so they're not in my weekly rankings.
Oh, Jared Goff's got to be close, though. Going against the Jags?
Still no.
Oh, come on.
Like,
what's a guy got to do?
So you're starting.
I would start Jared Goff over Mike White this week. I think the matchup is much better.
Yeah, I think that's the better play. I'm not going to chase the 3 touchdowns from Mike White, unfortunately. No. Chicago makes everyone look good. If we gauged Deonta Foreman off of the Atlanta Falcons, he'd be the number 1 running back. Like, you can't just judge a quarterback after they play the Bears.
Right. Heading back to Colin's question while it's fresh in our mind, said he asked for Watson. He's got Dalvin, Jacobs, Diggs, Adams, and Chase. Ooh, lovely team with Chase coming back.
No wonder.
So he doesn't have any throw-ins for me that I want, and that's totally fine. If there's somebody better off the waivers for you, then so be it. I mean, that's cool. Let him drop whoever he's going to drop. But I'm okay with you like.
Nice little strategy, going for the guy that has Deshaun Watson and getting probably the better fantasy quarterback.
Asking for Watson and then just getting Herbert.
Yeah.
No, I'm happy with Herbert. Again, I don't want to start Fields, and you're not going to be able to probably start him until week 17. So
yeah,
I'd go with Herbert, Colin, and just whoever you have to pick up to take advantage of that space.
Yeah, savvy move.
Lucius carrying 3 tight ends right now. Need to cut 1. Foster Moreau, Hayden Hurst, and Cole Kmet. I think you have to keep Foster Moreau. It's between Hayden Hurst and Cole Kmet for me. Is Cole Kmet even startable or streamable without Justin Fields?
Probably not, no.
I tend to agree.
I would just drop Cole Kmet because Green Bay this week and then a bye next week, so he's kind of an easy drop.
Yeah. So I'll keep Hayden Hurst and I'll let Cole Kmet go, even though Cole Kmet's currently the tight end 11. Without Justin Fields, value seems to be gone.
Hurst had 9 targets this past week.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And I know that Jamar Chase is coming back, and we're excited for that, but more first downs, more opportunities. Tyler Boyd hasn't been really looked at much, so.
No, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Purple Cat, full PPR. Need 1. Thoughts on Slayton, Burks, Zay Jones, Deontay Johnson?
Zay Jones?
That's interesting. I think I'd still prioritize Deontay Johnson. It's close, though.
Yeah, in a full PPR league, Deontay is easier to swallow.
Big
Um,
time.
he's hasn't had a touchdown on the season. He had a good chance this past last
Isn't that
night.
wild? Like,
I know.
not even close to the dirt. Yeah, like he's another guy who gets regularly targeted, and for what it's worth, Kenny Pickett's been pretty solid.
Yeah.
He's not necessarily doing enough to win you games on his own accord, but he's also not losing you games either. He's getting the ball out um, relatively quickly. He finds Deontay Johnson in the flat a ton, 8 targets last week. Again, it's just not deep throws with him, and he hasn't really been getting the ball to make after the catch yardage work either. So
Mhm.
it's a little bit frustrating to own Deontay Johnson, and the lack of touchdowns certainly doesn't make things any better. But I still prioritize him over Zay Jones.
Yeah, for me, it's just a. I don't. Yeah, it's hard to go away from what Zay just did with 14
I know.
targets. A
I
really
know.
good matchup against Detroit. Um, yeah,
I just
Burks.
look at I just look at all these games for Deontay. 12, 10, 11, 13, 10, 9, 8 targets. Like, this is a guy over the course of the year who's just had a lot of opportunity and hasn't been able to get on the same page as Kenny Pickett all the time,
Yeah, I
you
mean
know?
Zay is not too far behind as far as targets go. He's had some bad games, granted, but I mean it's Zay Jones at the end of the day. But he's
Yeah.
had multiple double-digit target games.
Yeah, I mean, this is much closer than we'd like to admit, but
I
I
know.
guess we could say that Jones and Johnson are both ahead of Slayton and Burks.
Yeah, Burks got the touchdown from the strip from
Mhm.
Derrick Henry, which is
Right.
hilarious. Um,
What a great play, by the way.
yeah,
I was going up against Derrick Henry in like 5 matchups this weekend, so to see that ball stripped out of his hand at like the 3 was just fantastic stuff.
I know.
Really
I
good.
know. Yeah.
In one league I play in, it's -2 for a fumble and -2 for a fumble lost. So had they not recovered it, it would have been -4 for Henry, and I was just gonna be super
Like that run didn't even
stoked.
happen almost.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It was actually a pass.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I do. I remember that. Yes, you're
Because
right.
I was like, how is Derrick Henry 12 for 25 right now? I just saw him run for like 70 yards.
Right.
And it was a
Yeah.
reception. Yeah.
Right.
Which DST should I go with this week? I have Eagles, Chiefs, and Vikings.
Hmm.
Very interesting. The Vikings are intriguing, but I mean, Mike White is capable. Eagles and Chiefs. I mean, Eagles have been a defense that I've been riding for a majority of the year. So they are tough to go away from. They do play the Tennessee Titans. Other than the ground game, the Titans don't pose too much of a threat through the air. Like Tannehill has been decent, but they don't have the weapons to burn you. And that secondary for the Eagles is really, really solid. So
Yeah.
if they can do enough to box in Derrick Henry, I think this game should be relatively simple for the Eagles.
Yeah. If you're rostering all three and you're fine with keeping all three, like okay. But I would roster the Eagles if any of them. I think the Vikings against Mike White is really interesting. Um,
Yeah.
I know
And
Mike.
if for whatever reason Zach Wilson finds his way back into the fold, I mean, full
I think
roster.
even there, like I think it's just gonna be. I think it's gonna be okay. Yeah, I might play the Vikings.
I'm not going to play the Chiefs this week against the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals just kind of have the Chiefs number. We've seen Jamar Chase torch this defense for 3 touchdowns, 200 yards. And he's coming back this week. So,
Yeah. What you're
I
hoping for, if you're a Philly, if you think about Philly, they need to get up early and then they need to force Ryan Tannehill to pass the football. That needs to happen. If they just run it and run it and run it, the Eagles aren't going to get any fantasy points.
yeah, I think they're good enough to stop the run, but we'll see. This just should be a very interesting game between these two teams that are all both, winning and doing very well. So,
Yep.
who do we like at flex? Palmer, Pickens, Patterson, or Rashad White? think it's got to be Rachaad White
I think it's got to be
first.
Rachaad White. I mean, we'll stay tuned, Jeff, to the channel, and we'll go live Sunday with what
Yep.
Leonard Fournette's status is. But
Sure.
right now, I think it's going to be Rachaad White.
I agree too. Last question tonight. Thanks for the assistance. Is it time to part with the Pats defense? Their schedule moving forward is pretty bad.
Yeah, I'm never committed to a defense unless I guess it's the Eagles or Cowboys.
Yeah, I think for the most part, we said the Chiefs have a good schedule, minus this game against the Bengals, and the Eagles have a good one. There was one more team that escapes me at the moment.
Lucius, if you drop the Patriots, you're streaming rest of season. So it's going to be a kind of a bit of a lottery. You got to be fine with that.
The thing about the Patriots that's tough is that Bill Belichick just does the perfect scheme for what he is playing that week.
Yeah.
You know?
Low key Arizona, like Kyler loves to take sacks.
Oh, he just donates them. He's like Oprah. Like, you get a sack and
he loses so many yards that it's impossible to get the yardage back. So against Arizona, it's not a bad matchup.
Yeah, I'm with Landon. Like, I'm not someone who drafts a defense and then just plays them the entire year. I will play matchups and try to do so weeks in advance. So yeah, you can probably part with them. I don't think you should have any allegiance to a defense.
Yeah. But yeah, look, Lucius, on the next 2 weeks, who has decent schedules. Because then that makes it, then you're not battling the waiver wire every single week. Just take a look to see.
The Browns this week should be a really good matchup. And then after that, Eagles and Chiefs are two defenses I can think of that are pretty locked and loaded.
So it's for Browns, it's Houston, then Cincinnati, Baltimore. So they're a 1 week starter, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Who's another popular ad this week? Who's that looking at? Trends. Seahawks. So Seahawks, I think, are a good matchup. And then they have Carolina. Seahawks are a great ad. So next 2 weeks are good.
It's not bad, actually.
Yeah, to get you in the fantasy playoffs, add the Seahawks.
Green Bay Packers, Chicago, then a bye, then the Rams. Also not bad. You just don't want to hold a team through their bye week.
No, yeah.
But that game against the Rams could be quite nice as well.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, guys, hope you have a good week. Good luck on Thursday. I think we get to see the Buffalo Bills again for the second Thursday in a row, which will be quite awesome. So good luck this week. Make the most of your waivers. We'll see you guys on Sunday for the pregame show. Every single week, 90 minutes before kickoff, we will go live to help you get your starts and sits ready for week 13, second last week of the fantasy regular season. Hopefully you guys have a good one. We'll see you soon. We're out.